I want to welcome my favorite female disruptor. And Mandy, I don't know if you know or remember that you won MVP, Most Valuable Player, Female Disruptor of 2022. So I was like, you have to come back for our 2023 virtual summit. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So Mandy, since we last caught up, which was about a year ago, you've had a transformational year. And actually for all women, it's been a very disruptive year from a lot of different angles. But what I wanted you to share is kind of like, your journey. Last time we talked, I think we were doing an interview for Digital Marketer Podcast, and you had just kind of gone through a little bit of a breakup and weren't sure where you were going next, but you had all these things already set up professionally. So breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. So share with us a little bit of that journey from that point, and maybe some insights you can give.
Yeah, definitely. So basically my whole world was uprooted by choice because I needed to get out of the situation I was in, but it was a 15-year relationship that I thought was going to be forever. And it wasn't. So my whole life had to change rather quickly, and I've always worked remotely from home. And so I have the freedom to do that. But again, was with this individual my entire adulthood. So it was a little bit, hard, if you will. That's a good word to use. Difficult to even go through the whole process and kind of leaving everything I know that is comfortable for me, including my dogs and, the town I've lived in for years in California and my home and everything. But just knowing that, like, in my core, that was ultimately the best decision for me and my business. And so it allowed me to think about what I really want my life to look like. Like what is the definition of a dream life to me? And now that the future that I thought I would have was completely, not relevant anymore, what does that look like? And so I really had to kind of, not only heal from the relationship, but also like figure out, like, what do you want to do with your life? It was almost like I was, here as a late millennial adult and kind of starting over, like I've had my business since 2010. So it's not like I just started my business yesterday, but, as you know, like when you're an entrepreneur, like life and business is kind of one and the same, right? Like everything is so intertwined when you're an entrepreneur, like there's no getting around that. So it's almost like I had to rebuild what I wanted. And I did that. And it's amazing now, but it took a lot of hard work and internal work, looking deep within and really healing and being happy with just me. And I think that's the biggest part, Lisa, is like I well, kind of, but I let go of all external attachments, my house, my car, what was comfortable to me, everything. I pretty much just was like, okay, well, I'm starting over. And it's just like this crazy sense of freedom that you have when you do that. It's like, I can be happy internally by myself, no matter where I am in the world, because I found, I know this sounds cliche, but like inner peace, right? Like I am peaceful and happy with just me and doing what I love and not worrying about anything else, not worrying about if I have a car or if I have a mortgage anymore, or someplace that I call home. And so now I just travel around going to cool places that I love and doing what I love professionally. And I'm content and the happiest that I've been in my entire adulthood. Really, I can't remember any time that I've been happier in my life. And I have no attachments, no emotional attachments, no physical attachments. Like I'm basically a free bird doing whatever I want. And it's amazing.
So I love that. And this is the first time that we're talking, probably in about a year. And the only reason I know is I've watched you, kind of go through this journey, and you've been super transparent and authentic in it, and on a platform that typically isn't, that transparent and platform on LinkedIn. And so you just really shared your story from a very raw and real place. And, your background, you can do that in a set, what your background is. And, basically LinkedIn is one of your primary, areas of expertise. But the word that you use, like no attachments, is also the same as, equal to detachment. And we're actually covering that in a couple of sessions. And, during Disruptors Virtual Summit is the whole concept of detachment. Yes. And I think that's interesting that you're bringing that up. And like, how did you detach from these things? And, share with us like some of the tips in detachment and what you did, maybe your daily rituals and how you the process of detachment.
Yeah. So really it's a spiritual, experience, right? So and I've been on a spiritual journey since the end of 2019, which I think really, really helped me in this life transition that I just went through and continues to help me. And so it's a matter of just prioritizing, like deep down to your core, like your soul, like take your personality self out of the picture, like your soul, like what does your soul crave? Like ultimately, what does your soul need to feel at peace, to be happy, to be content? To experience joy at, the ultimate level. And for me, I don't need a whole lot. I don't need a whole lot of physical attachment or really even emotional attachments. Like for me, it's just a matter of like, I need to feel confident in the decisions that I'm making personally and professionally. So the big thing for me is like, am I doing what I love to do professionally? And I, like I said, I've started my agency Mod Girl Marketing back in 2010, and we've done a lot, everything under the sun. I did courses and masterminds and all sorts of things. And you've seen my transition, Lisa, over the years, because you've known me for a while. Right. And I've done a lot. And so now my jam is LinkedIn, and I train sales teams on LinkedIn. I train professionals on how to, maximize the power of LinkedIn. And I absolutely love it, how to grow their personal brands. And I love doing what I'm doing right here. I love speaking and talking and training. Like I am a teacher at heart. And so focusing first on, like, we spend a lot of our times working, right? Like we have jobs. If we're not retired, like we spend the majority of our, Monday through Friday doing something to make money. Right. And so for me, it's really important that as an entrepreneur, I figured out like, what do I absolutely love doing? And every single day I wake up and I am happy. I'm not annoyed at the work I have to do. I don't dread it. And that was the biggest thing too, is because I'm not going to lie and sit here and tell you that my whole entrepreneur life, I've loved what I did. That would be a fat lie. Like a lot of it stressed me out. I didn't like it. I would wake up every day and be, asking myself, like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, this is too much work. I can't, this is stressing me out. And that actually was like kind of what prompted my spiritual journey anyway, was I wasn't doing the right things in my business. And so that is one easy way also is to detach from outcomes. If you want to talk about detachment, is like detaching from the outcome. Right. And so for me, it's like what lights me up and makes me feel the most joy professionally. I know that's what I need to do. And that will allow me to detach from the outcome because I know it feels good. Like in my core, I know I am doing something good that I love, and that is helping people. And I have to everything in between, like I have to detach from those outcomes because I know internally that this is the right thing for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, can you give some tips on, let's say somebody isn't going through like, you kind of went through this like sort of a crisis, right? Where everything was
Definitely.
kind of like changing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But you probably said you realized, back before that you were going through kind of a spiritual journey. So what specifically can someone do if they're, let's say, an entrepreneur or just, not an entrepreneur, but working in the professional corporate world and just stressed out and not happy and not having that passion for what they're doing? Like what's one step they can take?
Yeah. Prioritize your priorities. Make a list of what's important to you. And so I'm a big fan of reading too, right? And so reading books on, like, for example, my friend Richie has a book called Anti-Time Management, and it does this exact same thing of the question you asked, right? It helps you go through, like, if you're not happy right now, like, let's figure out what does make you happy, and let's help you get there. And so, like, let me just give you a simple example. Like, make a list of everything that you do every single day. So from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, write down what you do. And then next to each thing, write down what you can delegate and what you can outsource. And I'm talking about like personal life, professional life. So if you mow the lawn every day and it's a pain in your, or not every day, right? But that's part of your duties, is mowing the lawn, however often you mow the lawn, or even like doing simple housework or whatever, and you don't want to do it anymore and it's taking up your time. Well, then that's something you can look at delegating. If there's something like that's taking up a ton of your time on social media, like answering messages, well, guess what? Like you can delegate or outsource that. And so it's a matter of, and if you have kids, maybe like some of the tasks that you're doing, you can give your kids to do, right? Like there's so many different ways that you can break down, like, this is what I do every day. This is what I don't want to do anymore. And I can get help doing it, or I can stop doing it altogether, because you're going to come up with some things too on that list that you're like, why the hell am I doing that? That doesn't help me, like, why am I wasting time doing this when it doesn't get me to my end goal? And so I'm making a list of like, this is what I do. This is what I don't want to be doing anymore. And then that's going to free up your time to figure out what it is that you want to be doing. And honestly, like life is way too short for us to be doing stuff that we don't want to do. And I'm talking about anything like personal, professional. And so when you have clarity on what it is that you want, you can make that happen. But it's a whole process. Like you got to figure out what you want, like you can't just say like, I'm not happy, I want to change it. You got to get down and like really specific on why you don't like it and what is it that you don't like and what is it that you actually want to do. And then you take baby steps to make that happen.
One of the things I saw you doing, and I think this might be part of your process, is you were in an environment where you could walk on the beach and you could go watch the sunset. And, whether you were in part of the time you were in Hawaii, you were in the Netherlands, I think, and, California, but I always saw you like in nature. And how much do you think that helped?
That was actually my next thing. I haven't even got to like meditation, right? Like I'm talking about like the tactics before we get to that point, because I want everyone to know like how important it is to have clarity before you get to like out there. Right. But again, but having, it helps you get clarity when you do meditate and when you put yourself in those situations outside. So it's like, you don't have to have all the answers figured out right now, but being outdoors and being able to meditate and just like let my mind free and wander and just peace, is hugely important for me. So being outdoors is crucial for my life. Like that is, and being next to water, especially, is where I thrive and where I feel most at peace and where I feel free and where my soul feels the happiest, and where my ideas come from, and everything around just being in nature and appreciating, God's creation, source's creation, however you want to, whatever your beliefs are, it makes you feel like, my problems really aren't that big after all. Like once you think about planet Earth and how grateful that we are to be alive right here in this time and the surrounded by beauty. I mean, there's beauty everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. And just being outside and appreciating that and realizing like, our problems in the grand scheme of things really aren't that big, and life is so short. And why are we not prioritizing our happiness and doing what makes us happy and doing what makes us joyful, And so it just puts things in perspective when I am able to get outside and enjoy nature and just sit without any devices and just chill and appreciate what's around me, and then meditate and do what I need to do to kind of decompress and ground myself to realize like what is important to me in my life.
And I think as females, I mean, we have a little bit more on our plate, depending on, where you are in your life, but, women, whether you're a professional entrepreneur, getting married, having kids, like that puts on all of these other responsibilities where it's very hard to give ourselves the space to even like get clarity or go for a walk or go for 5 minutes in nature. So what advice do you give to females today? And, what does it look like to be a female disruptor in 2022 and going into 2023?
Yeah. I mean, you got to put yourself first of all. Like I know you have kids and spouses, but if you're not putting yourself first, you are not able to be your best self for the people that you love, period. So if you're running ragged because you're giving to everyone else, you're not giving your best self to those people because you're neglecting yourself. And so I think like as females, we all need to embrace a little bit more, self-love and self-care. And I don't want to call it selfishness because it's not at all, because again, I can't give my best version to the people I love if I am burnout because I'm not taking care of myself, And so I think ultimately, the version of female disruptors is to figure out a way consistently to put yourself first, whether that is, taking 5 minutes, however often, by yourself with no distractions and no kids. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? But even 5 minutes is a lot. I mean, for moms, especially, like you tell a mom, like, 5 minutes, and then they're like, well, by the time I put my kids down, like I'm exhausted. Like, I don't want to, you know what I mean? And so it's just like prioritizing you and your priorities and figuring out what fuels you and what lights you up outside of everything external. So take away all the people, all the external resources. Like you have to figure out like what fires you up internally, and you need to focus on those things because that's going to allow you to be a better spouse, a better mom, a better business professional. And I think that is something that we need to be driving home more to females is, we do give so much of ourselves to people, people we love and people that, we might not love, but that's just our nature. You know what I mean? Like we do that. And so I think putting yourself first, is something that we really need to hone in more on.
And seeing that you're an expert on LinkedIn, how can we apply that to what we're doing
Yeah,
on LinkedIn? What I
that's a
see
really
you
good
doing,
question.
what you put out is what you get back.
Yes,
And
exactly.
how does that work for
Yeah.
females?
So going back to the clarity piece and figuring out what, fuels you and makes you feel alive, is that translates to your personal brands. And your personal brand, like social media is the home of your personal brand, right? And obviously I am a LinkedIn nerd, if you will. And so for me as a B2B professional, and everyone that I talk to and train that is in B2B, their personal brand, LinkedIn is the home of their personal brand. Like this isn't the olden days when I started, when you had to have like a website for your personal brand, and social media was just like, it was a thing in the background. It's not like that anymore. Like social is your personal brand. And so everything you do needs to be portrayed on that. And so your LinkedIn profile should be optimized to talk about like, what are your passions? What are you trying to do? What are your goals? Who are the people you're trying to get in front of? It shouldn't be a glorified resume. You should be your authentic self, and then post content also that portrays your authentic self and attracts your target audience. And so it's just this whole like mindset shift of, now that I have clarity, I know what I want, I need to go out there and get those opportunities. And how I get opportunities is by showcasing to the world, this is who I am as a human and as a professional. So this is what I do for a living. This is who I help. These are my passions. This is what's important to me. And I'm going to showcase that to the world in a way that I feel comfortable with, and a lot of this is baby steps for people because they're not used to this. This is uncomfortable. So I'm not saying you got to go like crazy right out of the gate and do something that makes you insanely uncomfortable. But you know what they say about being uncomfortable, right? Like it's where the magic happens when you step outside your comfort zone. So, LinkedIn is an amazing place to build a personal brand and start that foundation, because it is a very welcoming, open community with amazing professionals that you can network with and help you take your career really to wherever you want to take it. But you have to be authentic and you have to be willing to share your experiences, share your knowledge with the community, and also engage and build those relationships.
So if you had to give somebody just kind of like how much time a day, a checklist of LinkedIn, like daily, weekly, month, what would you recommend?
We actually have that we give to our clients a 30-minute a day checklist. So like you literally in 30 minutes a day on LinkedIn can get quite amazing results if you are consistent, right? So from leaving 5 comments a day, and I'm just throwing numbers out that are minimum, right? At least 5 comments a day that are meaningful on prospects or, thought leaders in the industry, sending at least 5 connection requests a day, posting, at least once or twice a week. And so there's little things that you can do every day. If you're consistent, that will yield amazing results. But I tell people like at least 30 minutes a day and you're going to get awesome results. If you can't do that, then, every other day. Right. But consistency is key on any platform. LinkedIn is no exception. So there's a lot you can do in just 30 minutes a day for sure.
That's awesome advice. Any outside of LinkedIn, any last bits of advice you can give to females to future-proof themselves? And there's a lot of statistics that we have a long way to go when it comes to pay gap, gender gap, founder gap,
Totally.
funding for female-owned companies, even raising your hand and trying to compete for a promotion within the corporate world is still hard. There, the C-suite, still women are a minority, and then minority women are even more of a minority. So, what bits of advice can you give? Being an entrepreneur, you have a lot of control versus being in corporate world. Kind of has its pros and cons. But what advice do you give women?
Yeah, honestly, having a personal brand is so powerful. It's going to take you so many places and it's going to allow you to stand out amongst the competition. And yes, we are still, fighting our ways for equal everything as females. But when you are able to showcase that you have a personal brand that is, consistent and you are authentic, and you are building those relationships, you're going to stand out amongst everyone that you're up against when it comes to getting a new job, comes to getting a promotion. And so those people that are using LinkedIn effectively, they have a solid profile, they're building relationships, they're posting content, they have endless opportunities always. Like the people that I train that, have got laid off, unfortunately, there's so many layoffs been happening. And I've trained a lot of these salespeople, and the ones that have ran with my advice and taken it and built, amazing personal brands. Guess who were the first ones to get loads of job opportunities? Females, especially females, because we are already unique, especially in the tech world, right? And it depends on your industry, but I work with a lot of people, myself included, every time, my whole career really since 2007, I've been in a very male dominated industry. So I've had to work harder to prove myself, right? But now, thanks to social media and LinkedIn, if we are consistent with what we do, the moment that we are up against anyone when it comes to a job or any sort of, project, we're going to get it, because there's no comparison when you compare people who are actively using LinkedIn and building a personal brand to someone who's not. And people value that job, people that are hiring, whether it's internal or external, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or someone that works for a company. Everyone is looking at that. People are looking at your LinkedIn profile. They are looking at who is active, who is using it, who's building a personal brand, who's posting content. And so my biggest piece of advice is to invest time in your personal brand, period, because it's going to take you places that open doors that you never thought could be possible. And there is so much value in the network, and that is key. So building those relationships with people on LinkedIn is so important. And I can't stress that enough. So I'm talking about personal brand and content, which is great and all, but it's worthless if you don't have those relationships too. And you're not consistently building new connections and relationships, because guess what? Those are the people who are going to introduce you to people that could get you a new job, that could get you that project, to get you that client that you want. And so it's all about relationships. So I want to stress that. You and I have known each other for years, right? And so there's something to be said about building meaningful relationships with people and being authentic about it. Don't do it from a selfish perspective, but doing it first from a value perspective. Like, how can I help you? And I'm not going to have any expectations of anything in return. I just want to know how I can help you. And when you approach it like that, crazy, amazing things happen in your life.
Well, I think I totally agree. A lot of what you're saying will help build up confidence if you're doing something when you don't really need it. If you're creating content, if you're, doing outreach for connections and giving when you don't really need something back. When it comes time for, raising your hand and saying like, hey, I'm qualified. That's one of the statistics, is that women, they feel like they have to check off every box to put their hat in the game for whether it's a job or a position. Mm-hmm. Where men, and this is like a statistic from Charlene Lee with the disruption mindset, men have no problem applying for a job that they can only check off 1 out of 10 things. Yep. And that's not a problem, and they can get hired and they figure it out as they go. But females don't work that way, because of, which is not, we need to get better at that, but it's the whole confidence thing. It's like, I have to, be perfectly qualified to apply for this. And, that's something that we need to work on from a confidence standpoint. I talk to women, my daughter's friends, she's in college. My other daughter is young professional, and they are so hesitant to, oh, should I connect with this person? Like, do you think this is a good time to do that? And it's like getting past that. Like, I don't know what advice you can give for that, because everything you're saying, I think anybody would agree with, but like, there's confidence issues especially with young adults that I see, and also women that feel like, they're a little bit nervous because they haven't kept up with technology. So they're not really sure if they should do it, but it all comes down to confidence.
Yeah, 100%. And you can't care again, that's detaching from the outcome. Who gives a shit if someone doesn't respond to your connection request? Like, who freaking cares? Send it anyway. Who cares if that post flops? It's almost, and I'm glad you mentioned this, because I was actually going to say, we have to adopt more of a male mindset when it comes to business and confidence. We have to, and I think that's why I've been able to be successful all these years, is because I naturally, obviously, I'm a little bit more type A and have some of those male tendencies in business, where I don't care what people think. I am confident. I go out there and I make shit happen, and I don't care about what the outcome might be. I am not scared to go out there and do it. And so reading books helps, I could sit here all day and tell people just freaking be confident and go do it. That's one thing. Right. So I think being around other women that are confident is obviously important, just to see that. And it's inspiring to see that, but also reading, especially for young professionals, reading inspiring books, it helped me a lot in my early careers. But having those female mentors when I was early 20s and just starting my entrepreneur career was key for me, because they were the ones that were lifting me up in a sea of males, right? Those one or two female mentors I had that were entrepreneurs, business professionals in the Kansas City where I started my business. And they were the ones that really helped me, get the confidence early on. And I saw what they were doing, and I saw what they were telling me and was taking it to heart. And that was key. So I would also say surround yourself with powerful women that are confident, because I'm just going to say, like, just freaking do it. Like, there's no reason why you're not confident. Like, go and do it. Who cares? Like, what is the worst thing that can happen is what I always tell myself too. What's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, so they don't like it or they don't respond. Like, who cares? Everyone is so busy. No one's going to remember. If it doesn't come out your way, guess what? They're going to forget about it in like an hour, And so, like, you also have to remember, like, everyone on planet Earth is so freaking busy that, like, you are just like a little tiny blip. And so if you send something or they deny you or whatever, who cares? Move on. Like, they're not going to remember. You need to not remember. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, look, we only get one chance here. Well, depending on your beliefs, but like right now in this current lifetime, we have one opportunity, right? To do what we love and make things happen. So you just have to know that, like, this is the part of it. Like, you have to be fearless in what you want to pursue it, or you're never going to achieve your dream goals, period. Like, if you are not relentless in pursuing that and not caring about the outcome, you're going to live a life tiptoeing and be wondering, like, what would have happened if I would have tried to do that. I know that was a really long-winded like rant, but I'm pretty passionate about confidence in general, because it has been able to open up so many doors for me. And I think as women, we care way too much what people freaking think, and I'm over it. And I need to put that message out there that we need to stop caring what people think so much.
Totally. We can just end it on that note that we're over it. We have to stop caring what people think. And
Yes.
that's the bottom line to be a female disruptor. So
Yes.
Mandy, thank you so much for taking the time and being here for the 2023 event. And I'm sure everybody else is going to be like really inspired, like I am every time I talk to you. So any last words of wisdom before we sign off?
That's it. Stop caring what people think. Have the confidence to go out there and make it happen.
Be a female disruptor.
That's right.